Are you a communist?
No, I am not.
Do you like capitalism?
No.
Do you think that billionaires have a right to exist?
I don't think that we should have billionaires.
Yes, the Communist Party in the United States of America taking over New York City and taking the country by storm. Hobnailed boots, bayonets affixed. You know, the left is here. They call themselves liberals. That's, what would your mother call that? A lie. That's a lie. They're not liberals at all. They're the left. No capitalism. Am I a communist? Well, I don't have to answer that question. How many genders are there? Well, I don't know, but I certainly want prostitution to be legal in New York City because that'll make it better. Then your daughters will finally have some place to go at night. The Democrat Party. By day, they can go to the free heroin outlets and do their heroin, then by night get back to work. Crack that whip. Bum-ba-dum-bum-dum. A very happy hump day to you. It is. It's always fun to be in the Clinton household on hump day because the Secret Service, they have to go in and check, see how things are, and they find, once again, Hillary Clinton face down in a pool of her own dried vomit on the linoleum kitchen floor of one of their multi-million-dollar mansions. Hillary gurgling, glug, 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 terrible, very sad, trying to peel her face off the floor with the dried vomit as the Secret Service stands over her, shaking their heads with their knuckles on their hips. So sad. What might have been, but thankfully was not. I'm signing the cross. Hillary Clinton was never president and never will be, but her not-so-loving husband, he was. And, of course, he needs her out of the house because it's hump day. And the Energizer might be headed over. Who do you think? You think the Energizer is still coming over? Probably been through like 4 replacements since then because he's Bill Clinton. He's, what's the word? A deviant. He's a deviant. Remarkable times we're in. That also means, what does it mean here at the Chris Plant Show, Mike? Means that it is Mailbag Day. Mailbag Day here at the Chris Plant Show, and I've just received my Mailbag Day questions minutes ago, just a couple of minutes ago, and I have them here with me. And therefore, hump day in the Clinton household, mailbag day here on the Chris Plant Show. You decide. You decide. And Hillary Clinton, poor Hillary Clinton. Sometimes she looks a little chafed along the side of her face. We hypothesize that's because of the acid content of her vodka, given the empty 1-gallon cardboard box of cheap New Zealand Chardonnay laying next to her on the floor on its side. Very sad. Very, very sad. But kind of funny, too. So we've got a lot going on. The big, bad, beautiful bill of President Trump, it passed the United States Senate yesterday with the help of the Vice President of the United States, breaking the tie. I think the media are very outraged by that. They've already forgotten that Kamala Harris shattered all world records for being the tie-breaking vote in a closely divided Senate when the Democrats had the edge by this much. I'm holding my left index finger 1/4 of an inch over my left thumb and holding it next to the microphone just in case it's audible in some way, even though I don't believe it is. But the Senate Republicans narrowly pass Trump's big, beautiful spending bill. They call it the spending bill. It's the spending bill. Senate passes Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill after J.D. Vance breaks the tie. The left-wingers at the Hill, they have their... And the Democrats are very upset. Every liberal with a half a brain, and I think that's all of them, isn't it? And that's really, I mean, it's like, I'm not going to make a John F. Kennedy reference here, so I'll just move on with the half a brain thing. But every Democrat with a half a brain, and that's every Democrat. They'll tell you, oh, I've seen this again and again. They say, oh, this terrible, awful bill is going to strip 1.4 million people of their health care, and then they leave out the most important fact. We're talking about illegal aliens, gang members, child sex traffickers, drug traffickers, illegal aliens, and the Maryland men. They like to call the gang members from El Salvador Maryland men. They're not really Maryland men. Even if they're illegally in Maryland, they're still not Maryland men. But that's not important. But the big, beautiful bill, and Senator Eric Schmidt, he tweeted out yesterday, the big, beautiful bill kicks 1.4 million illegal immigrants off Medicaid. That is taxpayer-funded medical care, and every Democrat will pound the table about this, and they'll be angry about it because they really want to steal your stuff and give it to gang members from Venezuela that would kill your daughters. The Democrats are not on the side of civilization. They're not liberals. They're the left. But Senator Eric Schmidt said the big, beautiful bill kicks 1.4 million illegal immigrants off Medicaid. For too long, Americans have been paying for the welfare of people who shouldn't even be in our country. That seems fair enough. Today, the Senate voted to end that, he writes. And yes, this did make it into the final draft of the bill. A little back and forth. There were amendments being proposed and voted on and so on and all kinds of good stuff. Also, President Trump yesterday was asked a question. I don't believe he brought it up himself. He was asked a question. Are you open to arresting the former Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas? I said, whenever you say his name, you have to adopt a slight Spanish accent because liberals, that's the thing, Democrats. So Trump open to arresting DHS's Alejandro Mayorkas over border. Honestly, how many tens of millions of illegal alien gang members, child sex traffickers do you have to let in the country before you're held accountable? And the answer to that is like, how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? Nobody knows because it's never been done. Isn't that amazing? Also, President Trump yesterday used a bit of a bad word. Cover your ears for a moment. Trump says, son of a bitch, Biden wanted me in here while touring the alligator Alcatraz lockup. And it's true, the Democrats, they tried real hard to put their political enemy, President Trump, in prison. They tried again and again and again because they are, communists. And that's what communists all over the world do. And now the undemocratic party, the anti-democratic party, they're also looking to jail all of their political enemies. Aren't they amazing? Speaking of the news media, we weren't talking about the news media. That doesn't matter. Here's the thing. Woke up this morning to learn that Paramount, the parent company of CBS and CBS News and 60 Minutes, Paramount and CBS agree to pay Trump $30 million in Harris 60 Minutes election interference lawsuit. You may remember we played some audio of this, and 60 Minutes did an interview with Kamala Harris, and she was a complete buffoon in the raw tape. And then they edited down the raw tape to make her look as good as possible. And it was a big lie. And then they misrepresented President Trump in the 60 Minutes piece. And now it didn't even go to a jury because, they knew they'd lose. So CBS and Paramount, they said, well, how about $30 million? Can we give you $30 million? President Trump apparently immediately gets $16 million of this settlement with CBS because of their crooked editing. It's all in the editing room. There's the interview and then there's the edited interview. Post-edit, it's good to be a Democrat. Pre-edit, not good to be a Democrat because, you're obviously a maroon. What kind of maroon are you? How many kinds are there? Honestly. So 60 Minutes, CBS, parent company, Paramount, they agree. They've settled before going to trial to pay $30 million because of the corrupt editing, the filthy, corrupt Democrat-controlled media. 60 Minutes interview. It's just election interference. How many different forms of election interference have there been? We had the 51 so-called intelligence officials that all signed on to that, the felonious 51 letter, lying like criminals about including Dana Bash's ex-husband. He's one of the guys, and that's not why he's the ex-husband, but that's another thing for another day. We're going to bring the lawyers in a little bit later. Not really because we don't care, but the lawsuit is quite remarkable, and it's about the macro. It's not just about the 60 Minutes interview that was edited to benefit the Democrat Party on the lead up to Election Day and to the detriment of President Trump on the lead up to Election Day, as the news media does quite constantly. There's that. It's about the macro, which is the American news media. Everybody knows the most corrupt institution in America, the American news media. So we got that, and now They got to pay President Trump immediately, I guess, $16 million, but the settlement is for $30 million, $30 million. And that naturally reminded me of what happened in December, 6 or 7 months ago, when ABC fake news, the fake news of ABC, they were forced to pay President Trump, coincidentally, $16 million in a settlement. Wait a minute. Why did ABC have to pay Donald Trump $16 million? You know, the rich get richer. And this is one of the ways they get richer, is the corrupt news media. And ABC News forced to pay President Trump $16 million because they're crooks. And they've got their boy, George Stephanopoulos. And he was, what was his journalistic background again? Oh, yeah, his journalistic background is he was a Democrat Party staffer on Capitol Hill, then on the Clinton campaign, then in the Clinton White House, and then boom, suddenly he's they pay him $25 million a year, George Snuffleupagus. They pay him $25 million a year, and it's good to be a Democrat. His background in journalism was Democrat politics. That's all you need. Isn't that great? So, and ABC News, again, had to pay President Trump $16 million in December. And here is 60 Minutes, CBS News, Paramount. It had paid Trump $16 million and in a $30 million settlement with President Trump because, the Democrats, if they're talking, they're lying. The Democrats run the media, and they ran it into the side of a mountain a long time ago. Speaking of Democrats and the media, remember when ESPN, the sports people, they were praising and slobbering over a man named Leah Thomas who said, "I'm a lady now." And he's like, 6'5". He's got a penis and the attached accoutrement. And he's swimming against young women who are college girls. They were just high school girls not so long ago, swimming against them and stealing their trophies. And the news media applauded and said, "Isn't she great?" And at that point, you just lost control of a number of things, including the English language. But it turns out this Leah Thomas person, who isn't Leah Thomas at all, but a man, a dude, stealing stuff from college girls. And now, and everybody knew it, except the left pretended that it was never true. Isn't that amazing? The Democrats now at the University of Pennsylvania, an Ivy League school, where all the smart people go. They just don't know the difference between a man and a woman, between a boy and a girl, between male genitalia and female genitalia. Kind of like Ketanji Brown Jackson, the brilliant, not so brilliant Supreme Court justice who is an embarrassment to Western civilization and certainly to the United States of America and to biology and everything else. But now, Leah Thomas, you see, making headlines all over the world. University of Pennsylvania to ban trans athletes. That means transgender athletes, not, just transitioning from sophomore to junior year or something like that. But they're pretending that their gender is not their gender, but it's somebody else's. It's peculiar. University of Pennsylvania to ban transgender athletes after swimmer probe. Should you use the word probe in this context? Because that gets a little weird fast, doesn't it? And the University of Pennsylvania has got to apologize. They're going to apologize to all of the women who had been robbed of and stripped of by a man that the Ivy League institution declared to be a woman, even though he was a man. University of Pennsylvania to apologize for allowing transgender swimmer Leah Thomas to compete on women's team. Everybody should apologize to everybody, I think. You lefties, you're mental cases. The University of Pennsylvania has agreed to apologize for allowing infamous transgender college swimmer Leah Thomas to compete on the women's team, resolving a Title IX violations issue. They used to love Title IX, and then, like the schizoids that they so often are, they flipped on it. Like Leah Thomas on would she flip on? You don't even want to. I'm not sure I can talk about that on the radio. What with FCC regulations and everything. So, press release on Tuesday, the Department of Education announced that the University of Pennsylvania had entered into a resolution agreement to comply with Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972. They had forgotten about all that too long ago. Hey, wait a minute. Yeah. Years in the making, and now hopefully something resembling justice will be served over the dead bodies of the transgender, mentally ill, gender dysphoric Democrat Party. Speaking of which, an update out of Idaho on the murder of those 4 college students by that savage who should, of course, get the death penalty by firing squad, which is available in Idaho. I love that. So we got that. And your New York communist, who we opened with, Zoran Madmani, for dyslexics at home. Zoran Madmani and President Trump, a bit of back and forth there. The Democrat Party's going full commie. We are at 888-630-9625. Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at washingtontimes.com/Chris. All right, the commies in the Democrat Party are rising, like Leah Thomas in the deep end. And what? Yeah, never mind. And it's okay. The media loves it. And President Trump said of Mom Dummy, I don't know, maybe we'd throw him in jail. And the media is outraged by that. They were fine when it was just about throwing Trump in jail and everybody around Trump, because that's what communists do in every communist country, in every communist hellhole around the world. Let's go to the telephones, Michael. Let's go to Rob, calling from Montgomery County, Maryland. Rob, you're on the Chris Plant Show. Hey, wait, there's the music.
Chris, good morning to you.
Hey, Rob.
Top or middle of the morning.
Thank you very much.
Hey, I have a theory.
Uh-huh.
This Medicaid situation that the Republicans are running away from, I have a theory on this, that part of the reason why they're running from it is with all the illegals that came into the country that are getting all the free hospitalization, et cetera, if they cut that and they mandate that the people that aren't documented will no longer receive it, they'll leave. That's one of the incentives as to why they came here in the first place. I know my eyes, I see pretty well because I drive a bus. And I saw over and over all these women in lines ready to burst at the border. So I have a theory that that's why they're running from this, besides the obvious other parts of the Medicare thing of making people work.
Well, the Republicans say that this bill kills Medicaid for illegals. That mass murderer in Idaho, Brian Kohberger, I just know he's a Democrat. You can look at him and you can say, well, that guy's a Democrat. Do the Democrats want their daughters to date him too? Is he another Luigi Mangione for the Democrat Party? They are a breathtaking political party, they are. I think that America's leading Democrat today, last time I saw the presidential poll, who was leading for Democrat? Asked Democrats, who would you like to be your next Democrat presidential nominee? And who's the winner, Michael? No. It's Pete Buttigieg. It's Buttigieg. Yeah, he's there. AOC is in the running, but she's down with Bernie Sanders, who's a communist and a democratic socialist, like AOC, who's the dumbest bartender ever to come out of New York. Every other bartender ever to come out of New York is actually smarter than the member of Congress that the Democrats sent. But they like her caboose, so they sent her to Congress. Remarkable stuff. And they got a commie. And he's an Islamist, a genocidal anti-Semite, and a communist. And we just played some audio for you of him saying, are you a communist? No. Are you a capitalist? No. Do you think billionaires should exist? No, billionaires shouldn't exist. This is how communists sound. And remember, they call themselves socialists. The Socialist Workers' Party of Adolf Hitler, they called themselves socialists too. The Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, the USSR, they called themselves socialists. The Bernie Sanders honeymooned in the USSR with his loving wife, who later bankrupted that college in Vermont. And they have they own 3 houses and rent a 4th house, right? Because it's good to be a communist in the United States. It's a lot different than being a communist where communism is in charge already. Amazing stuff. But let me go to this, because there's some stuff that the Democrat Party's leader, who is Mad Manny, a.k.a. Mamdani, the headline in the New York Post today, why Trump's, quote, Mamdani the commie, end quote, tag will stick despite the media's cover operation, by Isaac Shore of the New York Post, actually covering the news of the New York Post, unlike the Washington Post. Zoran Mamdani wants to have his cake freshly baked at his local government-run grocery store and eat it too. The 33-year-old son of a Columbia University professor and an acclaimed filmmaker, that's his mother, has made the transition. Oh, I didn't know he was transgender. From unknown state assemblyman. He was elected by the Democrats to be a member of the state assembly in New York, the Empire State. He's there to burn everything to the ground. He makes Al-Qaeda look like the Red Cross, this guy. Not on the side of civilization. Transition from unknown state assemblyman to New York City mayoral frontrunner by riding a wave of enthusiasm for his unapologetic far-left agenda. But now he has to close the deal in a general election. He's desperately trying to soften his stances. Well, now he's got a bunch of Democrat political advisors coming in and saying, don't admit that you're a communist, baby-slaughtering, anti-American, billionaire-killing, rail spur building, gas chamber-loving radical, because we've been lying about all that stuff for years. After Mamdani's triumph last week, the triumph of the will, President Donald Trump marveled, said, it's finally happened. The Democrats have crossed the line. And he deemed the political wunderkind a 100% communist lunatic. Mamdani objected to the label during a Sunday morning interview with NBC's Kristen Welker, to whom he insisted he's merely fighting for working people. That's what Vladimir Lenin was doing, too. When we talk about my politics, I call myself a democratic socialist. Yeah, sure, like Hitler and Stalin. No problem there. What's to be concerned about? Nothing at all. And as a matter of course, the pseudo-scientific professional fact-checking industry erected to assist the Democratic Party, they swung into motion to back him up. Now, let me get some audio here, because they've gotten in the New York Post. They talk about how the news media jumped in to say, PolitiFact, the fake fact-checker, accusing Democrats of being communists or a communist sympathizer is a frequent misleading attack line by some Republicans. What if they're actually communists? It's a red scare tactic that has existed in U.S. politics for decades. Yeah, in the 1950s, there were communists in the State Department, and Senator Joe McCarthy was right about that. Check it out. Zoran Mamdani is favored to win New York City mayoral primary. He already has now, but not until yesterday afternoon because they're not good at counting votes. Claims he says that claims that he's a communist are false. This is what the fake fact checkers at PolitiFact are saying. Rolling Stone. Remember when Rolling Stone put the Boston Marathon bomber on the front page like he was a rock star, and they all wanted to date him because they all wanted to date him? And that was Joker Zarnaev, right, whose brother Tamerlan Zarnaev was run over by his brother Joker Zarnaev and killed during the police chase, but that's not important. So Rolling Stone magazine slobbered over Mamdani's interview with Kristen Welker, lauding him for having confronted Trump's misinformation. Sure. Al Jazeera, the Qatari-owned propaganda factory, with a strong interest in Mamdani's success, given that he's a Jew-hating, genocidal racist, and so are they. Sure, they've got a vested interest. The people at Al Jazeera, very invested in the success of Mamdani, given his virulently anti-Israel views. Sure. And Al Jazeera reprinted PolitiFact's thinly veiled contribution to his campaign. Honestly, we're going to have to sue these people out of existence for being complete frauds and charlatans. They're just appalling. But that's our media. Now let me get to some audio on the subject here, because let's go. President Trump yesterday was at the Alligator Alcatraz in Florida, and a reporter alleged asked President Trump about Zohran Mamdani, Mad Manny. And President Trump responded.
Your beloved New York City may well be led by a communist soon, Zohran Mamdani, who in his nomination speech said he will defy ICE and will not allow ICE to arrest criminal aliens in New York City. Your message to communist Zohran Mamdani?
Well, then we'll have to arrest him. Look, we don't need a communist in this country, but if we have one, I'm going to be watching over him very carefully on behalf of the nation. We send him money. We send him all the things that he needs to run a government.
That is, New York City gets all kinds of federal money, and New York State gets all kinds of federal money, and they love crime and criminals and illegal alien gangs and gang members. And, well, then we'll have to arrest him. Well, then we'll have, if he's not obeying the law, not following the law, which so many Democrats do. They don't follow the law. They don't respect the law. They don't respect the United States of America or the Bill of Rights or our sovereignty or our immigration system or any laws because, they want to date Luigi Mangione because he gunned down a CEO and murdered him on a sidewalk in New York. Well, then we'll have to arrest him. And the fake media, they're up in arms. Oh, no, Trump is threatening to arrest his political enemies. Well, he's not a political enemy, per se. He's an enemy of the United States of America, I guess. So to that extent, he's a communist, and he's ask him if he's a communist, and he'll say, well, no. Are you a capitalist? Well, no. Do you think billionaires should be allowed to exist in New York City? Well, no, we shouldn't have. And somewhere in there he's lying. But our filthy, rotten, corrupt Luigi Mangione dating news media, they got another thing going. And Michael and I were listening to this morning, and we said, well, wait a minute. Weren't because the media now very upset that you'd suggest arresting the mayor of New York for disobeying the law, corrupting everything, and inviting more crime and mayhem and foreign illegal alien gang members into the United States and New York City and all that good stuff. But we were reminded of the news media and the Democrats who had been trying furiously to put President Trump in prison again and again, I think for a non-disclosure agreement with a woman, which every network news organization has done again and again. Hey, where in the world is Matt Lauer? And it goes on and on. But just a little sample of the news media clamoring to put President Trump in prison for what? Was he not obeying immigration law? Was he defying federal law? Was he undermining federal law enforcement? Was he threatening to kill federal law enforcement? Was he rallying gang members in Los Angeles to get their guns and form an army and attack ICE agents because, a Democrat vice mayor in California just did that? But the media, they really wanted President Trump in prison.
Maybe Donald Trump will go away. Maybe he'll go to jail. Maybe he will die, not to be too morbid, but maybe, he's not a young man.
Jen Psaki on MSDNC, who went right from the Biden White House to a $1 million anchorwoman job at MS-13 DNC.
Do you agree with that it would be difficult or nearly impossible for the law enforcement institutions to put him in actual jail?
No, they would just put him in a double wide somewhere out near the fence, out in the grass.
James Comey.
And he would eat there, he'd shower there, he'd exercise there, he'd be away, as Danya Perry said, from general population, but it's obviously doable.
Yeah, James Comey, the corrupt, filthy, ought to be in a penitentiary FBI director, former FBI director James Comey. He sees seashells on the seashore, This is a corrupt country that the Democrats have let loose because they're basically commies. A lot of them are too stupid to know it. And that was James Comey, FBI Director, Jen Psaki of the Biden White House and MS-13 DNC.
For a million reasons, petty, shallow, and primal, Trump does not want to go to jail.
This is not a mugshot. This is jail. And Donald Trump is terrified. You've got to believe just by his issues with odors and smells and fear of disease.
Nicole Wallace and Donnie Douche, also on MS-13 DNC. They say he's a germaphobe, so he'll hate prison more than most people. And they were just clamoring to put him in prison. They couldn't contain themselves.
Just minutes ago, where were you when moment? Donald Trump now technically under arrest.
Jake Tapper on CNN, a former Democrat Party Capitol Hill staffer for a Democrat member of Congress, whose husband was a Democrat member of Congress, but he went to prison for being a corrupt Democrat member of Congress. And then their son married who? Married Chelsea Clinton, who is the daughter of Hillary Clinton and Webb Hubbell, as everyone knows. Isn't that amazing? The news media, they couldn't wait to put him in prison, and they were very excited about it. And now President Trump says, well, the communist is he's announcing he's going to defy the law, that billionaires shouldn't exist, that he's not a capitalist, and he wants to be mayor of New York City. And the Democrats, they always win the mayor's office in New York City, have for a long, long time. It was the last Republican mayor, Rudy Giuliani, out of New York City. And then they tried to put him in prison, too, didn't they? Did everything they could to put him in prison. They tried to put it because this is what communists do in Cuba and in the United States of America. The Democrat Party is the Communist Party. Isn't it amazing? Yes, it is. Wah, wah, wah. Just amazing stuff. And let's go to number 11, soundbite number 11. Turn it up to 11. And President Trump yesterday at Alligator Alcatraz in Florida asked about Zohran Mamdani, the communist, says he will defy immigration customs enforcement, won't allow them to arrest criminals, but he is planning on arresting Benjamin Netanyahu when he comes to New York for the United Nations or something, because he's a Jew-hating communist. And, the Soviets tortured and murdered and imprisoned the Jews in the Soviet Union, too. So he's kind of a Soviet-style communist when it comes to being an anti-Semite. Of course, the Socialist Workers' Party in Germany, they weren't exactly pro-Jewish either, were they? They had that Holocaust and all that stuff. And now the Democrat Party, they're goose-stepping in lockstep with the historical anti-Semites of the 20th century. Aren't they amazing? On CNN, used to be a cable news network. Now it's just a front group for the Democrat Party. President Trump should sue them for $16 million. Isn't that amazing? CNN, they had a Washington Post reporter on named Sabrina Rodriguez, and said, hey, what about Zohran Mamdani, the communist who wants to kill all the Jews? What do you think about him, Sabrina Rodriguez? Because you're on CNN now, and you're a Washington Post reporter. Tell us all about it.
The reality is this is drawing even more attention to Mamdani. This is drawing even more attention to his platform. I think it's unifying people who maybe don't agree with some of the more left-leaning proposals that he has. We've seen in the immediate aftermath of the election, more centrist Democrats kind of struggling with, some of the perception around what he said before about Israel, or some concerns about, wanting to do city-run grocery stores, and some, again, more of the left-leaning positions that he has. But when you have Donald Trump talking about deporting him, that sort of brings together a lot of people to say, wait a minute.
That brings together a lot of people to say, wait a minute. The deporting him is shtick. They still, all these years later, still can't separate the shtick from the actual political rhetoric. And wait a minute, what was the Sabrina Rodriguez? Trump is the bad guy in all of this. His left-leaning, arresting Benjamin Netanyahu when he gets the elected prime minister, who's at war with radical Islam and radical Islamists who are dedicated to the extermination of all of the Jewish people on the planet Earth. And apparently their Democrat leader in New York is as well. And what else? What are his other left-leaning positions? Arresting Benjamin Netanyahu, not cooperating with federal law enforcement, and legalizing prostitution, street prostitution in particular, legalizing heroin consumption in New York and beyond, and doing away with billionaires, I assume by way of rail cars and gas chambers, because this guy is a bad guy. And I got another CNN genius for you coming up, who says that calling him a Muslim socialist is really building up the Democrat Party's brand for the better. It's helping them. That's coming up. On CNN, they brought on a woman by the name of Audie Cornish. I assume the parents wanted Audie Murphy, but they just got a left-wing fake journalist. Audie Cornish, and a big Democrat, communist-loving, Islamist-loving, and listen to this woman saying that if you're going to call this Democrat in New York, the man who would be mayor, a Muslim socialist, don't think that will hurt his brand.
It's one thing to call someone a Muslim socialist who is not. It's another thing when someone is basically like, you can't hurt me with those words, right? Like, these are the things that he stands for. And it's a new sort of position in the Democratic Party of strength, Democratic Socialist.
That's right. It's a position of strength in the Democratic Party to say that you are a Muslim socialist, an Islamist communist. That is a position of strength in the Democrat Party. So don't think that you're going to hurt him by describing him as a Muslim or Islamist, as a socialist or a communist, because that is a position of strength in the Democrat Party. That's what she's saying, Audie Cornish. She's a journalist who currently hosts a CNN show This Morning with Audie Cornish, and does a weekly thing with them, too, Audie Cornish. And she's laughing. Don't think that hurts him as a Democrat, calling him a Muslim socialist. That's a position of strength in today's Democrat Party. Make no mistake about it. And she thinks it's cute. She's a woman of color, so no one can disagree with her or contest what she says.